Let's jump right in. What if I told you that the modern game of football, the tactics, the formations, the whole shebang, was actually the result of a massive historical butterfly effect? In this explainer, we're diving into a fascinating, frankly heartbreaking, chain reaction that kicked off in Central Europe and completely rewired global sports forever. We're tracking down the true roots of modern football, and honestly, the story goes somewhere you might not expect.
So I want to pose this question directly to you. Who really invented the modern game of football? Most of us immediately think of England, right? Obviously, they laid down the formal rules, they built the first massive stadiums. But here's the thing. The people who wrote the rules weren't necessarily the architects of modern tactics. As we're going to see today, the way the game is actually played, the deep strategy, the intense physical prep, the dynamic formations, that was all engineered by brilliant minds who were forced out of their homeland.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The Hungarian Exodus. 2. Creating modern calcio. 3. Revolutionizing Argentina and Brazil. And 4. Humiliation at Wembley.
Let's start with part 1, the Hungarian Exodus, driven by tragedy.
Okay, so our story actually kicks off with a really profound, tragic, inciting incident. From the 1930s through the 1950s, the incredibly famous Danubian school of Hungary was basically dismantled. You had these severe historical pressures piling up. First, the terrifying rise of anti-Semitism in the 30s, then the absolute devastation of the Second World War, and finally, the rise of a communist regime. All of this forced dozens of the smartest footballing minds to flee for their lives. But here's the incredible part. As they escaped to survive, they ended up exporting their revolutionary tactical genius all over the globe. It's like the idea spread like wildfire out of pure necessity.
Let's head over to Section 2, Creating Modern Calcio in Italy.
Now get this, because this statistic is genuinely staggering. During the very first Serie A season, we're talking 1929 to 1930, nearly half the teams in the entire league had Hungarian coaches. Half. They weren't just showing up to Italian football, they were practically running the entire show.
And the legacy these visionaries left behind? It's absolutely crucial, but also deeply tragic. Take Arpad Weiss, for example. He discovered the legendary Giuseppe Meazza, won titles with Inter and Bologna, and get this, he was the first guy to bring in strict diets and pre-match concentration camps to Italy. He literally wrote the playbook. But tragically, because of his Jewish heritage, he fell victim to racial laws and perished in Auschwitz. Then you've got Erno Agri-Erbstein. He was the mastermind behind the unstoppable Grande Torino team of the 1940s, a total pioneer in physical prep, before he died in the horrific 1949 Superga air disaster. And Lajos Cześlar, who pushed AC Milan to glory with this incredibly ultra-offensive style. These guys built the foundation of modern professional preparation right before their lives were cut so terribly short.
Moving across the Atlantic to Section 3, Revolutionizing Argentina and Brazil, the South American shift.
Now, before this influx of European coaches, South American football leaned heavily on something called criollo improvisation, basically a beautiful, totally free-flowing style that relied almost entirely on raw, natural talent. But then the Hungarians show up, and they introduce strict collective marking, military-style physical training, and just a totally rigid professional discipline. It was a massive clash of styles, literally a shock to the system.
And this clash is perfectly illustrated by Bela Gutmann. You know, he later won European Cups with Benfica, but before that, he completely rewired South American football. He took the helm at clubs like São Paulo in Brazil, influenced teams like Quilmes in Argentina, and dropped this wildly revolutionary 4-2-4 system on them. This was a real game changer. He set up these highly offensive structures that eventually gave South American nations the tactical teeth to just conquer the world stage.
Let's zoom in on Argentina for a second. The absolute heavyweight figure here was Americo Herschel. Managing Gimnasia in Esgrima La Plata, Herschel just broke the mold. He brought in this unprecedented, high-intensity, military-style stamina training to build a squad so dominant and so impossibly fast that the press dubbed them El Expresso, the Express.
Herschel put together this devastating front five known as the Cinco Columnas, or the Five Columns, with Arturo Nahun right in the middle as their historic goal scorer. But here's the kicker. Because of Herschel's crazy conditioning methods, this front line didn't just outsmart you, they physically overwhelmed you. They just outrun their opponents at top speed for the full 90 minutes without ever dropping a gear. Just relentless.
And you know what's wild? They didn't even officially win the 1933 championship. They were leading the whole tournament, playing the best football on the continent, but some absolutely scandalous refereeing decisions against big clubs like Boca Juniors and San Lorenzo robbed them of the title. They finished 4th. But the fans knew their spectacular play earned them the famous nickname Campeón Moral, the moral champion. And honestly, it matters so much more because Herschel's intense physical and tactical groundwork there. He took that straight to River Plate in the 30s, directly planting the seeds for their legendary La Máquina team.
All right, our final stop, Section 4, humiliation at Wembley, England. So, it's 1953, the match of the century. Gustav Sebesh marches his magical Magyars, featuring absolute legends like Ferenc Puskás, right into Wembley Stadium to face England, these stubborn inventors of the game. And they utterly humiliate them, 6-3. It wasn't just a loss, it was a total cultural earthquake.
How did they do it? Well, Hungary completely shattered the English defense by using a player named Nandor Hedegudi in a totally brand new role, the false nine. So instead of staying up top like a traditional striker, Hedegudi kept dropping deep into the midfield. Imagine being a rigid English defender in that moment. Do you follow him and leave a massive hole in the defense, or do you stay put and just let him pull the strings? It completely scrambled their traditional marking system. No way they could handle it.
That brutal 6-3 defeat was a massive wake-up call. English clubs were literally forced to look in the mirror. They finally had to ditch their super rigid, outdated WM system, the one relying on long, hopeful balls over the top, and start adapting to the fluid, short-passing, rotational European style that the Hungarians had absolutely perfected.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with this to chew on. How different would the modern football we watch today look if not for the tragic exodus of the Danubian school? Think about it. From the tactical defensive setups of modern Italian calcio, to the intense professional discipline of South American legends, all the way to forcing the inventors of the game in England to finally evolve, the sport we all love is, without a doubt, a direct product of these displaced, brilliant minds. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.